Hey everyone, just a quick little notification message just before you watch this amazing episode with Jai. My audio disconnected because I was fiddling with the cable as I was adjusting myself on the chair and it plugged out. So we've only got Jai's audio, not mine. So when you watch it, please forgive us for my clumsiness, but enjoy the episode. Talk to you later. Hello. Welcome to another session here at Your Call to Action. This is Jesse here from KeepSpace, and with you today is Jai. So Jai, I want you to be able to give your intro. So just tell me, dude, in a quick 5-second verse, what are you all about?
5 seconds. Oh, okay. In a sentence, mostly about creative for e-commerce. So content, advertising, that sort of stuff. So I run an agency out in North Freo, and we have a team now of sort of 12 or 13 people, and we're all in-house and have a studio. And yeah, we pump out pretty epic videos and photo content that I can't take full credit for because it's mostly the guys pumping it out, and work with some pretty ambitious brands and founders.
Wow, so you actually make video content yourself?
Yeah. I like to set up the 3, 4, 5 cameras, however many there are.
Yeah, there's a couple, but yeah. So what kind of video content are you talking about? What do you guys make? Because I love video content. I think it's cool.
So the bread and butter is definitely the Facebook and Instagram ad style video. So video, photo, and we break that down. We can do everything from those explainer videos in the studio to unboxing, UGC.
What's UGC?
User generated content. So at home with the camera, filming yourself and talking about leaving authentic reviews. So most of the content is used for brands, typically sort of 7 figures plus, and scaling through their Facebook spend, and needing more creative and better creative to do so.
So you're in Fremantle?
North Freo, yeah.
North Fremantle. Oh, is that just over the river?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's Huckman Grove area, right?
No. Peppy Grove, no, that's more
Peppy
inland.
Grove, and then you got another one that's closer to the coastline.
So we're right on the coast, North Freo. Yeah.
Right. I haven't been that part of town for a while because I know main Freo is insane for parking. It's so. I've got so many tickets. It's not funny.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the journey? How did this start? Just take me right back. When did you start doing? Why did you start doing?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. I'll go back a little while. Grew up in a big family, 7 kids, so 1 of 7. And I guess, so both my parents are teachers, and I guess they'd sort of, from a pretty early age, prompted us to think a little bit differently and maybe, have some more opportunities that they didn't have when they were
7.
1 of 7, yeah.
That's a big family.
Yeah.
What? Why?
Oh, you'd have to ask my parents, but no, I love growing up in a big family. I think it's you learn a lot of things, and we're all about 2 years apart, so you had a lot of friends growing up.
Wow, that must have been your Christmases must be crazy.
Yeah, even still, yeah.
Wow, I give respects to your parents. I've got 2, yours 7. Do you want a big family?
Not 7, definitely not 7, but I like the sort of bigger family. I think there's a lot of dynamic to it.
Yeah. Cool. So you had this big family, you're doing your thing.
Yeah, so I guess they'd always encouraged us to think outside the box. Maybe uni isn't the only pathway. Maybe there's some other options that you can sort of get into. We've got some classic YouTube videos of us when I was 12 or 13 talking about business ideas and stuff. But it didn't actually come into fruition until I was probably about 16, and had a friend of mine who I'd met online through some Instagram related stuff. He was growing Instagram accounts, and I was like, I want to do that. I think there's a lot of potential in this space. I wasn't making any money from it or anything like that. I just enjoyed doing it. So that was sort of a thing when I was 16, 17, and that transitioned into doing it for other people. So small businesses, I would, basically had back then automation software that I would use to, grow their accounts. And back then it worked. Now it doesn't. But that was kind of the entry into the online business world, I suppose, and really naturally progressed into picking up a camera and getting into the creative stuff because, I just wanted to take photos and travel a bit and that sort of thing. Or videos more so, I would say.
How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
23.
You're 23, so 16, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So you kicked this off 6 years ago and you're like, Instagram's the place I want to play with.
Sort of, yeah. So this was definitely a very different space I was in. It was more like growing Instagram accounts and doing a bit of influencer marketing type stuff. And that transitioned really naturally into the content. And then I just started freelancing with, mostly videography when I was probably more like 19, 20. And that took me around the world a little bit. I spent a lot of time in Bali and worked with some really cool people. And back then all I wanted to do was just keep traveling and make enough money to keep traveling and, be a bit of a bum and whatever, bit of a hippie, right? And then things transitioned a lot and, like I mentioned, worked with some really interesting people throughout my time, and it sort of made me reflect and be like, I kind of want to build something a bit bigger or stronger or more substantial than just freelancing. And so I was like, I want to build an agency. I was like, I want to run Facebook ads for people and outsource the work and just collect the check and, probably doing it all for the wrong reasons when I started.
What was the difference between freelancing and then the transition to agency? Because there are people that still do freelancing a lot. I never freelanced personally. I did a couple of side jobs. But what's it like when it's your full-time gig compared to?
I guess it sort of got to a point where when I did focus on the agency stuff, and it was a different space, so the agency at that point wasn't creating content, it was trying to run ads and marketing. But I was freelancing to stay afloat, basically. I was, doing a gig a week and just making enough to scrape by kind of thing. So it wasn't I wasn't full-time in the freelance. I was probably part-time and traveling in between, if that makes sense. But yeah, so I got to this point where I'd now moved to North Rio and I was, pushing this agency when from there, I guess it was sort of like flogging a dead horse. I learned a hell of a lot, had a huge progression. I had probably 30, 40 sales calls I lined up with potential clients and didn't close a single one. And it was just a really transformational period. And kind of got to a point where I was like, hold on, I'm doing all this content stuff to stay afloat. I'm trying to push Facebook ads, running the Facebook ads. I was like, I need to rethink this. And so took a step back and kind of combined the two and went all in on content for e-commerce brands. So it was kind of very performance focused. For them, they're able to run it in their ads and turn a profit from the content. And it just made so much sense. So I kind of went all in on that probably late 2019. I was still working from my dining room table, but I had a bit more behind me at that point. And then 2020 is when I hired my first teammate to help me out with workload, and it's just progressed from there. Now it's sort of a year and a half down the line, and we've got 12 people in-house, and just wanting to continue that sort of growth.
12 people in-house is no joke. If you're paying sales full-time, 12 peeps, that's good coin.
Yeah.
Good coin.
I mean, it's multi six figures a year in salaries.
So you've been doing this. When did the agency kick off?
Technically late 2019, but early 2020, kind of around there.
So it's been going
a couple of years.
Wow,
yeah.
Wow. I already got 15 people. What did you say, 15?
12, 13 if you include me.
So, sorry, it doesn't sound like I listen, but I do.
Still waiting for the tea to kick in, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. So now that this is going on, in the content side, and there's quite a bit there.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's the organic content, like you do say, which is kind of like this here, which then sort of transitions into there is sometimes a lot of manufactured content, which some people have the filter to be able to block out that stuff, but then there's some that are still quite learning this space and will still absorb that with all the true organic stuff. What's your vision and the approach that you take? Because I know selling a product is a big deal, and trying to just flog product as much as you can is kind of the focus there. But is there any, I guess, moral value that you hold to say, like, I know you want to sell something and you want to pay me for it. I don't believe in this thing because I think it's not good for the environment or whatever. Do you ever have that kind of thing going on? Or you're like, I'll take whatever product comes on the table because money's king, baby. Like,
it's a really interesting question because more recently I've been having a lot of conversations around this, and the reality is, you know, when you first start in a space, you probably are going to take on work that comes your way because you want to make, you know, you want to be able to grow and make the most of it in the starting point. But definitely comes a point where you hit maybe like a more meaningful level of growth where you start to think about who you're working with, and you're almost at a point where you can say no to people, and that's a really powerful spot to be in because it means you can, one, work on exciting projects that you care about and that you want to drive forwards and help, you know, great people doing great things. And yeah, two, you're able to, you know, no longer work with the brands that are niggly or not a great culture fit or don't have a great product or just trying to drop ship and flog stuff. Like there's definitely elements to it. So we're for sure transitioning into that, and I'm more than happy to knock back people that aren't a fit and have that alignment there as well.
Yeah. There was conversations with a couple of e-commerce guys who I know who are trying to source, like, this is not a sales pitch, by the way, I'm just talking truly here. Like, they went to other companies here in Perth,
looking for fulfillment or?
No, support with their online traffic and marketing.
Yeah.
I kind of want to drop names, but at the same time, I just think it's perhaps a small place, so I won't. Let's just say they are in Subiaco, and that's about it. These guys were approached by a couple of e-commerce businesses, and there's a difference here in price segments where you have the Rio Tintos, you got, you know, the BHPs, you got the, you know, the RACs, you got all the big guys who are in the country and in Perth, and these advertising agencies milk after them, and when they go after them, they're expecting these huge charges, like 20K a month or whatever it is, really high numbers, and then they're hoping to be able to bring in this support, and they're quite interesting how they present and sell themselves. But then when you get e-commerce guys who are like genuinely working their ass off every day, and then they only have a certain amount of coin because they got to put it back into product and they got a cycle to go through before they become super successful. They might be in cycle 3 or 4, but you know it's going to be cycle 8 or 7 of the product being purchased and restocking, and product being purchased and restocking, and going through that. When they get to around the 8th or 9th session of that, they usually have it pretty well down, and they're doing, you know, high 7-figure area, not high. They're doing millions, but they still got a long way to go. So the businesses you were saying you're working with, like, when do they usually have a chat with you? Or
when does it make sense to actually invest in
when's that
content?
transition happen? Because you know it's important to make sure the business survives, but not at the not at the detriment of the business overspending what it should be sourcing for later on. But what's your thoughts on that?
I guess what we've found in recent years is a lot of brands being built off the back of Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising. And so for a lot of them, that is their lifeline. And to be honest, it's not a healthy place to be in. You know, I'd recommend diversifying when you can. But with that in mind, the creative is so important, the content, because one, they're looking at their return on ad spend. So if you can improve that with better content, more engaging content, better click-through rates, you know, their results are going to improve. They're going to make more money, for one. And then for two, to be able to spend more, say they're spending 10K a month, if they want to spend 30K a month, they're going to need more content to facilitate that. Because there comes a point we've got a couple of banging videos, but a couple months down the line, they start to fatigue, and it's just a natural progression. Like, content's not going to perform great forever. It just doesn't happen. So naturally, they need more content anyway. So we really come in for those brands that, one, have a big need for it, and they know they need it, and they want to grow, like they want to spend more, they want to be more profitable, and acquire more customers and just grow the brand. So it kind of just goes hand in hand. It's a really natural progression for brands who are, I would say the benchmark probably somewhere around 7 figures a year. So sort of $80,000-$90,000 a month minimum in terms of revenue. And a lot of them would spend 10, 20, 30, 40 to get that a month. So we have some brands spending $200,000-$300,000 a month. So the content just becomes even more important then. So it kind of goes hand in hand with most. But there's definitely a level for sure, because like you say, there's product costs, there's marketing costs, there's costs for e-commerce businesses. And I guess what you find is if you have an epic product, usually you can make it work. If you're trying to rip someone else's product off, or if you're trying to break into a really saturated industry, you're going to struggle a little bit more, and you need to be pretty significant scale to pay for more content.
When you say saturated industries, have you got references that you would say are pretty obvious to the whole market itself that are kind of saturated?
Things like oral care, teeth whitening, for example. That sort of hit its peak a couple of years ago, and 4 or 5 years even. And just went crazy on socials and.
What was that company that did that, and they put the thing in there and they glowed white?
They're probably High Smile. Yeah, High Smile. Yeah, they're huge now. Yeah, so they kind of pioneered that movement, and or at least in Australia. And so that would be one example. There's definitely some in the beauty space. Apparel, like clothing, shirts and stuff like that. That's always really hard to break through. Vitamins and supplements, same thing.
Doesn't this vitamins area, isn't it all that Blackmore's guys, they own that space, right?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a few around. The ones we sort of work with or speak with, there's definitely some really innovative vitamin brands and products we work with. But you just got to expect to be almost breaking even on the front end when you're acquiring customers. And then that lifetime value kicks in when they buy again and again. So it's just a different industry. Whereas, when you're selling other products like, I'm trying to think of an example now. One of the brands we work with sell like stone books, like stone paper books rather than trees. So
stone paper books?
Yeah. So really innovative.
Wait, this is a company that works with you guys?
Yeah. B Corp certified.
What's that mean, B Corp certified?
Basically means they're, in terms of sustainability aspect, they pretty much tick every box, and they're really qualified in that sense. So doing everything above the board, and it's a really powerful thing for sustainable brands. So Cast is the name of the brand, and they do things across. They do notebooks, action pads, daily planners, that stuff like that, but not made from trees, which is a really cool value prop. So they're growing like crazy.
A stone book.
Yeah. So it's not. I wish I had one with me. It's like
Flintstone stuff.
It's like paper still.
It's still like paper.
It's waterproof, pretty much tear-proof. Super smooth writing experience. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's not. I gotta see this thing.
Just made from.
What's the website?
Cast, KARST.
.com.au. Or
.com. Either cast.com or cast stone paper.
I'll take a look, because I'm legit interested. That's because I was just assuming books that are made out of stone would be fundamentally heavy.
No.
It would be shocking for shipping.
I mean, they're a little bit heavier, but really impressive too. Yeah,
okay,
very impressive.
Cool. So that's really interesting. So the concept of you're talking in regards to organic and better for the environment product type arrangements, and you're right. I'm seeing more and more of it, and from what I understand, the Australian government's looking to shut down a lot of the plastic uses of the uses of plastic, the mini beads, the one-time single uses for forks and straws, and this whole industry is kind of getting overturned, knowing the fact of what's going on in the oceans and what's happening to the rest of the world. So I'm curious, are you seeing more products that are trying to, is this a space that's opening up that you can see where people are trying to make a difference but try to be cost effective? Because that's the biggest thing, right? These guys will make products, and then these products will bloody be too expensive, so then it's unattractive. So then it runs into a cost war with the existing, just due to mass production of these other things. It's
becoming a lot more achievable, I think, with consumers being more conscious of those things too, and There being that social stigma around it as well. So definitely seen an uptrend in that side of things, and I think that'll continue for a long time. At the very least, if it's not the product itself, it's the packaging, being sustainable and recycled or compostable, those sorts of things as well. So it's almost going to become a standard with a lot of places, and particularly for people building, real brands that they want to grow into big brands, right?
Can you reference anything because I know that there must be some guys that come down because I know there's the compostable bag.
The Hero packaging.
And these guys are out there.
Better Mailer Co.
They're making it big. I hear a lot of people using them. Haven't seen anyone compete against them. I know there's a straws they make out of bamboo now. Was it they use the banana leaf to make bowls and plastic forks?
One great example would be coconut bowls, which is, I don't know if you've seen those. Yeah, so a friend of mine, he runs the advertising for them, and obviously they've had a huge impact over the last couple of years, very big organic growth, and they're coconut shell bowls, so made from wood.
So what's your thought process in you're seeing what's going on in the market space? Where's this journey taking you? Because you've only been doing it for a
couple of years,
about 3 years, 4 or whatever.
Where am I envisioning the agency to go, or the market? Yeah, the agency. Yeah, probably. I see it for me. It's a vehicle to networking, connecting with people, working with great brands, learning a hell of a lot. Upskilling a team, creating opportunities. There's a lot of things that come into it, but for me, it's definitely about, I'm not naive to the fact that I'm not going to be running an agency for the rest of my life. It's not the one thing I'm going to do. And so I think it naturally really progresses into probably building out a portfolio of e-commerce brands eventually, or partnering in brands, or being sort of, have skin in the game in that sense, maybe with clients. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but certainly getting into the e-commerce space and diversifying a little bit from just one business, if that makes sense. So it's that's the longer term plan. A few other things going on as well, but for the agency itself, certainly just capitalizing on the opportunity that is here right now. The last 2 years have been super fruitful for e-commerce, and especially in the creative space. With the iOS 14 stuff that's come out, for advertisers, it's a lot harder now to advertise. Things just shit's hit the fan.
What do you mean?
Basically, have you had the notification on your phone saying, do you want to be tracked on this app?
Wasn't there a big fight between Apple and Facebook? And Apple was like, no, security is important for privacy. And Facebook's like, nah, let that reign, sort of thing. And these guys clashed.
So
for those who don't know, fill us in.
So I don't know the details exactly. I don't want to be spreading false information, but essentially the effect of that, what's happened with the clash against Facebook and Apple, is Apple's gone, and all the Apple users, iPhone users, basically need to either allow tracking or disallow. I don't know the term for that. Not allow tracking. But the thing is, they're still going to be tracked either way. They're just, if they say I don't want to be tracked, they're going to get ads that are not relevant to them because their data isn't being tracked. So when people are advertising, they're still going to advertise too. You're just not going to see relevant ads. So you're going to be seeing ads on Facebook for heaps of random shit that you don't care about. Whereas if you allow the tracking, you'll actually see ads that are relevant to you. But the thing is, there's been a huge opt-in rate for people not tracking, because naturally, you don't know what it means. You're going to say, yeah, don't track me. So what that means for Facebook advertisers is basically the attribution has just gone out the window, and they're no longer able to see their direct return. So if they spend $1, they can't see how much they've made off the back of that. They have to go to the Shopify level and then blended ROAS across, blended ROI across all of their marketing versus their sales. So it just made it a lot harder for advertisers to track sales through the Facebook platform. But doesn't affect us as much, because creative, if anything, is more important than ever, because it needs to be more engaging and ultimately convert more sales than ever before.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Because there's paid advertising, and there's the stuff we're doing right now, which is making organic content. Now, you and I both know, I believe, long-term content creation is more successful than short-term advertising spend. Or am I false in that statement? That's my personal belief, hence why I'm doing all this. What's your thoughts initially?
I agree with you. there's definitely an element to that. I guess like when you start out, it's the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the results are going to come from the paid ads because that's what's driving the action, especially at the start. Organic is a long-term play, always is. So at the start, it's 80-20 skewed that way. And then as you progress, coconut bowls, a great example because they're only 20% or something like that. 20% of their revenue comes from their paid ads. The rest is all other platforms, organic, because they own a number of the big smoothie bowl pages on Instagram. They own a lot of traffic organically. So I guess in that respect, super powerful when you're at a meaningful scale. But yeah, to start with, most people, and that's why we're seeing a big trend, or have done up until now, in brands being built straight off the back of paid ads. So a lot of that was happening, and that just comes also from kids at home being like, I want to figure out how to build an online business, and there's YouTube, and I think it's a really great thing, to be honest, being able to learn and do that from home as well. So definitely two sides to it. Everyone has their own opinions, but I know personally for me, like growing the agency has had the networking aspect, and my personal brand has had a huge impact on that trajectory. So definitely, the organic side comes into play there.
Because I get you're running a business, and your business is based around the expenditure of advertisement and then correcting that. And I know like Bonfire, Yappy, there's a couple other big names with those two guys that are into Glide Agency.
I think I caught up
Ben
with
and Scott,
those guys.
They're the Cut Agency.
Yeah.
Like everyone's throwing ads at something.
Yeah.
And those guys, I know a large portion of their business model is based on people to spend with them, and they take a cut, and that cut is to help show them how their spend is going, and if it's going well, tweak it, perfect it, improve it, and then continue the monthly payments to it. Like, I get it. It's a thing, and it's all around. But I also know, like you just said, the long-term longevity of a business model should also look into long-term strategies as well. It's a lot bloody harder to do this. Like, putting a studio together ain't easy, but I know that it then connects to the person who's on the other end of the screen, who's on the phone, who's on the TV, wherever they are, to watch this and know if you're like full of shit or you mean what you say, and buying from you is going to stand for it. So it's like, how authenticity seems to matter so much more now in advertising than ever before. Well, actually, it's always mattered. It's just that the ignorance of online traffic was able to get away with it for so long because it was a new space. People didn't mind a bit of BS because they didn't know any better. People are starting to know. Kids are starting to catch on. Like, how to address that so that you're able to always be authentic with a sponsored ad, or do we go for the clickbaity stuff every time, and just to grab the bang and then because this is something I've heard a couple of times, and I'm going to go on a little rant here, where you make it super clickbaity, like really attractive, either it's attractive girl or really great graphics or amazing hype video, click on it, go to the landing page. The landing page fails to achieve the conversion, so you blame the landing page, which may be someone else's responsibility, where you've done yours, which has brought the lead. And I hear some of that conversation going on, and it's like it's a bit of to and fro, between advertiser to website developer and conversion. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah,
there's a key portion in all of those things. And to answer your question about authentic versus more polished, I think there's a place for both of it. You're dead right in that oftentimes more polished stuff won't convert as well. Cinematic stuff won't convert as well. It still needs to have all those elements, a great hook, really be able to educate people on your product, show people using it, have good social proof and a good call to action. So that'd be like a typical, top of funnel video. But at the same time, like the UGC that I mentioned before, user generated content, like because that's more authentic and it's more relatable, it's real people talking about it on their iPhone, typically does perform better. But you can only get so far with that. That's not going to build brand. That's not going to make someone look at an ad and say, hey, that's that brand. That's koala. You know, like I recognize that.
Oh, yeah.
So you know, when you're at that meaningful scale, that's when the other stuff really does become important. So to answer your question, a mix of both.
Yeah, you're right. Because you do have your organic where you're talking to the team, you're talking to the founders, you're talking to the crew. Those guys are showing you what they stand for, what they believe in. But then eventually it's like, I really like this. By the way, here's my product, guys. I've been smashing this out. Buy it, please. And then you're out of it. I didn't fucking buy this. Don't do that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So when you're at the early stages, let's say we're talking to businesses, because a lot of people that usually, and this is probably a factual arrangement, so don't brutalize me, guys. But usually people that will listen to the podcast a lot are people that are still on their way up.
Yep.
And the ones who have made it are just too bloody busy executing everything.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're in the early stages of the business model, what's usually the ratio? Because maybe they don't have 20K to spend. What's the ratio of organic to paid? Should they be, if you were...
If I was starting out, what would I do?
Yeah.
So reality is you're going to have to do stuff by yourself. I would go straight into TikTok and Instagram Reels. That would kind of be where I start. Instagram Reels are going crazy at the moment because Instagram is competing with TikTok. So it's basically, if you're posting good engaging Reels, it'll push it a lot further than a normal post would because they want people to stay on their platform. And so, you know, I've got friends and my partner even, she's on Instagram, she's sort of grown 30, 40,000 followers in a couple of months, you know, just through posting Instagram Reels almost daily. Some other friends, same thing. And so I guess what the beauty of TikTok as well is those things can go hand in hand. You can almost create content for one and it'll kind of suit the other as well. Point I was making there is one, you can get the organic benefit of crazy reach on TikTok if it goes viral, same for Reels, and you can repurpose those for ads as well. So if I was to start, I would be looking at trends, trending sounds, trending videos, and recreating those with my brand and my product, and doing it on my iPhone, editing on my iPhone, doing it at home. Like that's probably how I'd start. Reproduce some of that or repurpose some of that for your ads as well if you wanted to get in and start running some ads. And that'll probably be enough to get you going. And the reality is, you know, you're going to need to test stuff. You're going to need to keep going. It might take you 20 videos before you hit one that actually does something. I almost wouldn't recommend going to an agency and paying them to run your ads until you've tried it yourself because, you know, where's your proof of concept? How do you know if they're doing a good job? Because you haven't done it yourself. So, yeah, there's a few elements there. And then obviously the content side, getting better, more content, that comes in when you probably are at a more significant scale. So the reality is when you're starting out, you probably have to do a lot of it yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree with you. That makes sense. So you're looking to actually start one yourself, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that thing, man.
Well, that sort of came about the natural progression, right? Just with the agency stuff, not wanting to split focus too early. So and then naturally it's just come around and we had this opportunity to partner in an e-commerce brand and basically looking to do a lot of stuff on the content side, but also have some skin in the game, like I said before. So
these guys came to you and said, "Hey, Jai, like I love this thing. I'm making this thing. I'm really focused on the product of this thing, but I suck at advertising."
We sort of worked together to develop it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we came together and then now we're sort of looking at next month. What are we now? July?
It's July now.
Yeah. So sort of August. Bit of a soft launch and get some more proof of concept before we actually go right into it. But right now, we've got 700-800 products en route to Perth, about to land. So
look at this thing.
Yeah, let's pull it out.
So what
do you want to do the honors?
Exactly. So you're going to make a website and you're going to make a blanket. No, I don't
a rug.
It's a rug.
All
right. So what? Okay, cool. Fill me in. What is it about this rug that made you think, wow, this rug's so much better than other rugs?
I think a few elements, but it's the sort of thing that myself, partner and friends, you know, we've used ourselves for a long time.
Ooh, different colour.
Yeah, so the orange is the top and then this is like the other side that randomly comes out.
That's cool.
Yeah, so they're throw rugs, so, you know, use them at picnic rug at the beach or on your bed or on your couch or as a blanket or on the wall. It's art.
Like if you jump in the pool, can you? It's not
not quite a towel.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
More of a blanket or a picnic
It's almost as thin as a towel, but it's not. Yeah, it's got that rough feel to it.
So these are 100% recycled cotton, so very sustainably made, and we designed these. We collabed on the designs, and basically they're all original. And
do you mind if I ask where it was made?
Made in China through a partner of ours, and we looked into a few different options, and this one was the best for us to start. We have a great relationship with them, so
you got like the moon and the sun, and that I ain't gonna lie, it's kind of hippie. It's pretty hippie, but it's cool. It's got that Fremantle feel for sure. Because you know when you go to Fremantle Market, so I could see this in the shop there for sure.
Yeah,
that's cool. So just talk about the numbers on this thing. So how much do you think this is going to cost? What you were thinking to sell, if you want?
Yeah, I'm happy to touch on it briefly.
Yeah.
So we when you look for a product, or at least previously when we'd thrown e-commerce ideas around, and before this stuff came about, you always look. There's a certain criteria, right? There's probably average order value above $100 because we're thinking of something that can scale, and in order to scale, you need to be able to spend on paid ads to acquire customers. So the higher the average order value, the more profitable you could be doing that. So $100 average order value product we actually loved, like something that we would genuinely use, something that is, I guess, like fashionable and there is a market for it. Essentially, there's proof that people would buy the thing. I mean, that goes without saying, but so many people, I guess the classic example would be going in and starting a clothing brand and just assuming people are going to buy it.
Dude, I'm so glad you actually said about the $100 thing, because so many people will bring in a product to market, look at what was on eBay or Amazon, and try and fight below that $40, $50 range, below that area, and it's just like, it's killer. It's so painful. So the fact that you even recognize that, please listen to what he's saying. $100 is a really, really good place
or more.
to be. Or more.
Yeah. And so definitely a few criteria. Obviously the sustainability factor and wanting to do genuinely good things in the world and also not affect the planet in too much of a negative way in the process. So it means we can get pretty creative with content and stuff as well.
Do you reckon this would fit on the table?
Should we try
it? If it does, I'll buy this thing. Legit. Yeah, like it go this way. Will it fit the whole way across?
Might do.
That's pretty gnarly. Oh, I like it. Oh, how much? What this?
How much will it be?
Yeah.
You have to wait and see, but we'll hook you up with something. Don't worry.
All right, sweet. I want to buy this one because it matches the table really nicely, and all the tea making processes. Can I put this on?
Yeah. So we got a few designs, and we're the team's in the process of designing a bunch more as well. So goal is launch, get some more proof of concept, and then just really grow and capitalize on it.
So gnarly, I love it. Yeah, cool. Oh, thanks, man. you just want a customer. Cool. So
First customer.
Awesome. I like it a lot. I'm not liking it because it's like just on the shirt. I actually like it because it actually matches the brown. And the fact that you said it's recyclable cotton from whatever it's from. Because I know that in, there's a big change in the fashion industry about fast fashion is starting to dry up a bit. The idea of just going to Bangladesh.
There's crazy stats around the amount of litres of water that's used to produce a pair of jeans, for example. There's the amount of, like heaps of resources being used, oil dumped wherever oil is dumped during the process of creating things from scratch. So certainly the 100% recycled is also organic cotton as well. So there was a few things we wanted to tick off for sure.
I'm down on that. If you stand true to that stuff, happy days all day. Happy days. So you got this site, you're thinking of launching it in August, and you're going to use your tactics that you have built. Because we've talked about your organic to paid, I'm assuming going to use a similar strategy for yourself for this?
Oh, for sure, yeah. So with the team that we're building, have people on the paid side who are going to be running the ads. We've got ourselves doing the content, and obviously we can go pretty crazy with it and go to some epic locations and just naturally that side will just come very easily. It's probably more so the operational side that the logistics, sorry, I should say, that were, you know, still fine tuning and that sort of thing, and probably not the strong suit, but you know, it's all going to come together. And I think as soon as there's proof of concept, that's when you can really start to look at diversifying.
So let's talk about that. Let's say, because we do get guys that come here and say, oh my God, this thing's amazing. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell millions on blah, blah, blah. How do you define proof of concept?
I think it's something really, so a little backstory. Before I went all in on Brand Boostr, the creative agency, I had this moment where I wanted to start a jewelry brand actually, and I wanted to get into e-commerce back then. And I was like, either I go all in on the jewelry brand, get some investment somehow, you know, a partner, and then, you know, the agency is just another thing. Or the other way around, all in on the agency, come a point where I can be involved in e-commerce projects or start my own. And obviously chose the latter. And it was really powerful doing that because, I mean, every day I'm speaking to $1 million founders, like every day. Like I've probably been on 300, 400, 500 calls with brand owners, and most of them over 7 figures. So it's you just pick up on things. You start to get in tune with the kind of products that do have potential, the kind of markets that have potential. And it was just a really natural progression, you know, it's just ticking boxes and, you know, also finding something that it's data, right? It's asking people, it's getting feedback from people and not just your friends and family, because of course they're going to say, yeah, I'll support you. Yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah. But genuinely going to strangers or if you are friends saying, hey, don't say you would buy this just for my sake. Tell me what you actually think about it. And that's going to make all the difference. I listen to podcasts around like Native. Have you heard of Native, the deodorant brand?
I haven't, but yeah.
Yeah, so like they grew and sold $100 million exit in 2.5 years, and they had a team of 8 in-house at $100 million. So
100 million, 8 people.
Yeah. So I think they had some stuff outsourced, but very rare. Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. And so like in their case, they did so much customer research. They would ship like formulas out. They would split test their formulas. They wouldn't even tell their customers or the people they were sending them to. And at first it was 10, then they could do 100, then it was tens of thousands of people at one time, and would just wait to see the reviews, and the reviews would say, oh, I love this one so much. This one didn't have as many reviews. They're like, okay, that's the formula. That's slightly different, but it has more of this ingredient. That's the one we need to roll with. So it's that feedback loop that's really going to help define the success of products going forwards.
Wow, that's really interesting. Because, I mean, I want to touch on something probably a bit selfishly here. You're talking to all these founders that are starting to get into the $1 million space. And when you get a lot of the small things right, it's actually very achievable to get to $1 million. It really is. So then, of those people you had spoken to, how many of them were funded, so to say, and not funded when they had to just grind and grind? How many of those guys did you get any conversion or conversation on that level with any of these dudes?
Yeah,
dudettes?
I think there's probably a huge portion of them that, you know, the question just wasn't asked, so I don't know. But definitely a mix. Very much a mix actually. And if anything, more recent times, probably more people coming in with funding just because, or at least the people we're attracting now, you know, at that level, which makes sense. Just because, yeah, it depends on your objective, right? It depends on how quickly you want to grow. If you're in the marketing space, usually you kind of know an idea is going to work, so you want to amplify that. But on the flip side, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, there was a bunch of people founding brands and doing it bootstrapped, and it's just, you know, grown over time, and now they're doing really well. So it just takes longer, obviously, and it needs to be more organic, more content marketing. But yeah.
That's really cool. Dude, like, I don't know what else to ask you right now. If this is going to be launched out, you're going to have a couple of these, it's probably there's a couple of these blankets, not rugs?
Rugs.
Sorry.
Better than, we get mats a lot. People saying, well, nice mat. And I'm like, it's not a mat. It's a blanket's okay, but blanket rug.
Blanket rug. Have you got an idea of how you're planning to, so you've got your advertising strategy you've got to put forward. What about the process of who you think you would sell it to in regards to
customers?
Yeah. I mean, I bought it because it looks cool and it fits automatically into the studio. But is there like other formats that you've looked at, or is it mostly just going to test it all online and go from there? Or are you going to go
direct to consumer online is for sure the way, at least for the first X amount of time, through a Shopify store likely, and be able to grow that. There's so far you can go with that. I know brands who sort of turning over $30-40 million a year just in Australia, more than that, $100 million a year in Australia. Some of them, that's very rare, obviously, but reality is, market-wise, you don't need to go global from the start, and you don't need to go into retail, online, and all of these different affiliate, whatever else. So we're going to keep it simple, one strategy, one avenue, and then when time permits, then move into other stuff.
When you say one strategy, what is? I mean, you may have touched it just a second ago, but what is that one strategy?
In layman's terms, smash content really hard. That's obviously why we're a part of it. And then leverage advertising. So in the simplest form, Facebook and Instagram ads, but that goes into a bit of Snapchat, Pinterest, TikTok, that sort of stuff too. And I guess there is, more strategy in terms of the organic side. We'll be going pretty hard there, but that all comes back to content. So most of it will be centered around content and then amplifying that through paid channels. Yeah.
Paid channels. Dude, when are you looking to start that process? Was it August, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. You know what? Would you be keen to come back on, say, around...
A couple months later?
Yeah, around December, just around the Chrissy time, just to see how that progression was? Because I'd be very interested to know, after release, how it went through, and money where the mouth is kind of scenario.
We might have them stocked here and have you guys shipping out orders for us.
Sure. But just like you said, I want to feel that burn, I want to get a taste of it ourselves. All that stuff.
It will.
But then if it does, I mean, we'd be very honored to process these if that is the case in that. But yeah, absolutely, because I know people would be very interested to know how that tactic and that strategy worked. And then obviously from where you start from initially, always progresses into other strategies that become available to you once the initial ones are started, right? Like that's
I think the biggest thing is that you can't go wrong with more content. And that's it's not a sales tactic to say, come work with us. Genuinely, if you're shooting it yourself, if it's a freelancer, if it's whatever, more content is always a good thing. It's never not a good thing, unless it's really shit content, which is also a possibility. But just more content, because you can use it in so many places. And especially if you're selling something direct to a consumer online.
Cool. I'm going to say that's the call to action right there. I'm not going to ask you a question. That is it. Jai, thanks very much for coming on, man. It's been super cool.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. We're done.